Right now, the world is governed mostly by weak men, destroy whatever they don't like. But it's that attitude that gave birth to the carnage we saw 80 years and 114 years ago. You do all this and what? They've ruined the so-called future you're fighting for. You're not even going to be here to see it. How things are going to turn out in the end. Let's hope it doesn't get worse than this. And let's hope common sense prevail. But in all this, there's one thing I'm grateful for. I, for one, am truly amazed at the level of commitment financially that humans take in order to just wreck and take out each other. I mean, with the current sequence of events, I just ponder and wonder. Just imagine if a fraction of the amount that humanity commits to wars and just killing each other, if that can just be used for the betterment of each other. I just keep wondering. I mean, we try to take out each other for what? Difference in ideology, systems, belief, control, greed. I mean, where does it end? And if with the current state of events, no one wants to back down, we are creating a huge chain of events that will lead to catastrophic consequences in the coming years if we continue along this path. At least at some point, we need to think ourselves, to what end? For just the limited amount of time we stay on planet Earth, look at the amount of carnage, chaos, and death we unleash on each other. Like, it's really insane. I'm just thinking, with the way things are going, if we continue on this path, it's not going to be funny in the coming years, truly, truly. For just the limited amount of time that we spend here on Earth, I truly am amazed at how much we are so freaking eager to want to see each other gone. To the point of committing so freaking much resources, finance, and whatnot to just take out one another. And I say again, if a fraction of the amount we use to try to unalive each other can just be used for our betterment, a whole lot of things would just be so much better. So freaking much better. And with all that is going on, I'm just casting my whole mind back to the trail of events that led to the First World War. World War doesn't just start just like that. There's always a spark. There's always one event, incident, circumstance leading to another and another, and it becomes full-blown insanity. And at that point, you'll be wondering, what's the point of all this? Why did it even start in the first place? What do you stand to gain? Is it worth it for the limited time you spend on Earth? You do all this and what? They've ruined the so-called future you're fighting for. You're not even going to be here to see it. The future is full of surprises. You never can tell how things are going to turn out in the end. Man, I'm just in deep thought though. As much as I watch anime and whatnot, I'm one that is versed in history and events, although it's not what I studied, but along the years, I have settled down to look through past events. Up until the time from the Roman Empire, up until this present moment, I can literally sit down here and just tell you tale of events that have happened throughout history. That's just how much I have settled down to just understand why things go the way they go. What went wrong? Why? Why all this? We're going from the time of the Roman Empire to fall of the Roman Empire to the Dark Ages to the Crusades and whatnot, and on, and all that, and all just the fights, the Catholics, the Protestants, and all the whole instance of colonization and the world wars up until this present moment. You just be asking yourself, what do you stand to gain with all this chaos and destruction? People are willing to leave their own citizens starving. Like, people can't be starving without water, without food, without shelter. And the person that can solve that in that nation is willing to commit everything, I repeat, like every single thing out of their GDP to just go to the other side and kill as many people as possible than to help solve their citizens' need inwards. That truly should keep you in deep thoughts. Because it's really baffling how much you want to commit to kill one another over helping your own people and yourself. What do you stand to gain? And I say again, what do you stand to gain after all this? With what is happening, there's just one stuff that I watched back in the day that just crossed my mind. Oversimplified World War I. Do we just have a little look at it? Let's just watch it one more time and I'll give my take as things unfold. Okay, and I'll pinpoint it back to the present. Okay, this is one of those videos where it's a random incident, so we are going full random with this one. So for those that are not interested, you can just step aside, but I would urge that you hear me out on this, okay? Because it really needs to keep you in deep thoughts. If not, the carnage that is to come. I remember a little while ago, someone was asking with the whole stuff that happened during the Second World War, like millions and millions of people dead. Why wasn't there someone or rather people that stood up to things when it hadn't gone out of control? Why wasn't there people that stood up and said, no, this is wrong, you need to nip this in the bud in your own nation before it turns to something else? Now we're seeing just how much zeal that one just wants out of extreme greed and need for control, that you are willing to sacrifice it all. And for what? For a future you will not see. Anyway, let's watch Oversimplified World War I, and I will continue to drop one or two that's on my mind as we go on, okay? Let's come with me.
The world of 1914.
A time of modern technology, culture, and fashion. Does that remind you of something? Does that remind you of present day? And so they were saying, 1914, that's about 112 years ago. You can see how history just repeats itself. They're saying a time of modern technology, culture, and fashion. What is 2026? Is it a time of modern technology, culture, and fashion?
Truly the height of civilization.
Truly the height of civilization.
Let's have a war.
112 years ago.
Coming. 14,
let's have a war.
A time of modern technology,
let's hear that again.
Culture, and fashion. Truly the height of civilization. Let's
have a war. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Coming. France wanted some stuff back that Germany had taken from it. Germany wanted to take more of everyone's stuff.
How it always starts.
Sexy navy that was making the British.
Is it building a big sexy navy that was making the Brits uncomfortable? Does that remind you of something? Back then it was between the great colonizer Britain and the upcoming economic powerhouse Germany. Does that remind you of something? What does the current US and China remind you of? Does it reflect this? Well, I'll leave you to answer that.
Comfortable. These two empires thought they were really cool, but lots of different people who lived there didn't think it was so cool.
Yeah, people didn't like all that.
Declaring independence with help from...
Does that remind you of the Middle East? As much as stuff might be going in the Middle East, there are a whole lot of stuff within the nations there that is just unsteady. And voices, though some are loud, some are silent, that really don't really like how and where they live and whatnot. It's just the same powder keg that leads to something catastrophic, and it just needs a spark to ignite something devastating.
from Russia. Everyone was talking about each other behind each other's
Let's say
backs,
that
thought they
again.
were really cool, but lots of different people who lived there didn't think it was so cool. And some of them had even been declaring independence with help from Russia. Everyone was talking
can hear
about each
that?
other behind each other's backs, throwing the fact that military technology had come a long way.
Throw in the fact that military technology had come a long way since the last major war. Where was the last major war before World War One? That was in the 1870s, right? Yeah, I think that was 1870s when Prussia took, some of France's stuff and whatnot. There's still a lot to that. You can check that out for those that want to see. But then they are talking, throwing the fact that military technology had come a long way since last war. What does 2026 remind you of? Have you seen military technology now? You can see this is what we were saying, 112 years ago. Exactly same thing. Time of technology, culture, and fashion. Same thing. Everyone eyeing everyone's stuff, wanting what? More control. One that is the established power jealous of the other economic upcoming one. And when that starts happening and reaches a boiling point, it's a powder keg of disaster waiting to come.
Since the last major war, and suddenly everyone was pretty eager to beat each other up. In this
What
area
are
of
we seeing now?
Austria-Hungary live some Serbs and Bosnians who hated living in Austria-Hungary. So the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand goes there for a nice drive in an open-top car with his car's route published in advance. And that went just about as well as you'd expect. Some assassins were waiting for him along the way and threw bombs at his car, but they missed and blew up some officers behind him instead. So
Americans have they been planning on taking out the Iranian leadership? Although this one happened so quick and fast, and I was like, whoa, that was quick. But still, it's not a matter of who's right, who's wrong, or what. I'm just talking about basic humanity here. When do we learn to start accommodating one another properly? They couldn't 112 years ago, that was the start to the craziest of wars. I don't count World War II as another war, it's just World War I Part 2 in a crazy fashion. But this is how that keg that ignited it all. The need for control and greed. And just finding whatever you can use to weaken that other upcoming economic powerhouse that you see as a threat, so-called threat to you. For how many years are you going to live on planet Earth? Let's say you try a lot, so your organs are very healthy, 100 years, 110 years, and that's it, you are gone. And with all that limited time, we are willing to just destroy ourselves to nothingness. Over what? Is it really worth it?
the Archduke goes into hiding, leaves Sarajevo, and the whole war never happens. Except no, the Archduke doesn't leave, but instead goes back out in the open-top car to visit the injured officers in hospital. The driver takes a wrong turn and by sheer coincidence gets stuck beside
And they
one
try
of the
another
veiled
one.
assassins, who shoots him.
Oh yeah. Okay, it was a
Austria-Hungary
gunshot.
is understandably pissed about all this, and they think the Serbian government had something to do with it, which they might have. So they go to their ally Germany and say, "Hey Germany, we're going to declare war on Serbia," and Germany is all for that. So Austria-Hungary send a big list of impossible demands to Serbia, and when Serbia refuses, they declare war.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? What were the demands of everything happening in the Middle East? It starts with this one saying it's an existential threat to you. They bring this impossible demand, knowing fully well that it will not be accepted. They go to who? This powerhouse over there that says, "Oh, yeah. You can do what you want." Because ordinarily, you know that ordinarily, the US not attack Iran. This is just coming from who? Well, we all know who. It's just they're using this world power to just do their bidding, and it's a powder keg of disaster waiting to come. There are no winners in this. If you are thinking that there's going to be this winner here, winner there, study history. The thing is, a lot of people don't study history. That's why we keep making the same mistake, and it all just blows up in our faces and we start asking, is it really worth it? But by then, the chaos is already done. The damage is gone to catastrophic lengths that you could not have imagined from the get-go. You can't. The future is full of surprises.
Austria-Hungary and Germany are friends, and Serbia is protected by Russia, who's friends with France.
The sequence of alliances turns it
Montenegro
chaotic.
joins in too.
Always
France and Britain
does.
also have a kind of alliance. So
Just
when France says,
you can see how
"Hey,
everything
Britain, you got my back," Britain
sparks
is like,
and engulfs everything.
and then they decide
Until
to
it
stay out of it,
starts,
which
then
is great for
just
Germany,
sucks
because
in everybody.
Germany has a plan. They know that Russia is so big and clumsy that it will take them a while to get ready for war. So with this guy in charge, Germany will send all its troops into France at lightning speed while Russia's getting ready, defeat France, then move all the troops to Russia and defeat Russia, and then we all speak
Nice
German.
plan. And everybody thinks it's gonna happen fast.
Just one problem. France has loads of forts and defenses along its German border, and Germany can't waste any time fighting them, so Germany decides to go around them through Belgium.
And it starts.
Belgium is neutral, but
And you
Germany
think it to
wants
go
march
fast.
750,000 troops through it to get around France's defenses.
Just see the
They're
eagerness.
hoping
The
Belgium
eagerness
will
to
kind of
want
sit
to
down
kill
and
each
shut
other.
up, but they don't. They fight back, and they're pretty good too, so they slow the Germans down. What's worse
So
is
much
that
for happening
Britain shows
fast.
up, and they're pretty pissed that Germany's invading neutral countries. So now Britain.
That's how it happens. You can see how it does. You can see when the whole stuff in the Middle East currently started. Just starts, but within a few days, bit by bit, starts pulling everybody. Before you know it, starts turned to something else. But I just hope it doesn't get to that, though. At the time of making this video, it hasn't. But if it does, well, brace for impact. That's all I can say.
So Germany push on through Belgium and commit some atrocities along the way. They also wear spikes and sometimes skulls on their uniform. So if you're trying to not look like the bad guys, good job. The Allies have a propaganda extravaganza, and this starts having an influence around the world, notably in America. The US President Woodrow Wilson sees himself as a bit of a Jesus figure, and spends most of the war trying to get everyone to just hug it out. But there's also a large population of ethnic Germans living in the United States, and when the war first broke out, they were like, yay Germany! But now that they're committing atrocities in Belgium, they're less enthusiastic. Let's play Spot the French Soldier.
At first, it seems like fun. Just the way people are just yes on social media, are just hailing here and there.
Trousers. And
But
do you know
then-
who else spotted him easily too?
Thousands starts dying to
So
tens
when
of
the French were slowly
thousands
marching in columns through
to
the
millions,
countryside,
and at that
Germans
point,
easily tore them to shreds with their giant guns. All the nations involved in this
Stops
war
being
went in with
fun.
an old school war mentality, and all of them had to update their uniforms and tactics a lot during the Great War. Because this war was going to be like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Russia's ready for war, and
starts
way earlier
normal
than expected.
and goes crazy.
The
Always,
Austria-Hungary
always
get on top
does.
of that? Oh yeah, sure, we've got this. Nope. So Germany has to send some troops back to the east to defend against the Russians. The chief of staff of the Austro-Hungarian army is this guy, and although he is handsome, he turns out not to be the best military strategist. Austria-Hungary constantly ignores Germany's advice, and then comes running back to Germany whenever they get in trouble. Austria-Hungary even gets its ass kicked by tiny Serbia, who repels all their invasion attempts at the start of the war. It's better news for Germany in the north, though, where they almost completely wipe out the Russian Second Army. Back on the Western Front, the Germans continue advancing and are in sight of Paris.
And this was supposed to happen faster. Does that remind you of something? Does that ring a bell of current circumstance? It's always supposed to happen fast, and it turns out not. It becomes muddy, bloody, demoralizing, and totally just beyond catastrophic, beyond anybody's imagination or planning.
At this point, anyone would be forgiven for thinking the Germans were going to get that quick victory after all. But then
Is it?
things start to go wrong. The French commander-in-chief knew something had to be done, and he ordered his armies to stop retreating. In the resulting battle, a gap opened up in the German lines. If a gap opens up, the enemy can use it to flank you from the side and behind, so the German armies have to retreat. The Allies launch a counterattack, so the Germans dig into defensive positions. The Allies do the same. Then both sides move north, trying to outflank each other.
That
along
becomes
the
a
way.
war of
When they
attrition.
reach the sea, they're in a stalemate
And the
with
death
trench systems
toll
running the whole way from the
turns
coast to
crazy.
Switzerland. The beginning of trench warfare on the Western Front. Here's how trench warfare works. Two opposing lines of trenches with no man's land in between.
This might seem like a long time ago, but 112 years is not really that long ago. It's not. Although I don't think there's anybody that fought in World War One that's still alive. Is there anyone that fought in the First World War, 1914 to 1918, right? Yeah. They're still alive now? I don't think so. But well, this was supposed to go very fast and quickly, but you can see. I'm sure all the strategists that strategized about this were like, give or take 2 weeks to 1 month. Well, look, something that was supposed to be 2 weeks to 1 month turned into something else. 4 years in and still not just mounting death tool upon death tool upon death tool.
One side would pummel the other with hundreds of thousands of artillery shells, sometimes for days at a time. This had a huge psychological effect on the soldiers, leaving many shell-shocked. Then, the
Is this what people want now?
Trenches and rush across no man's land. A muddy, wet mass of shell craters and barbed wire. The defending trench would unleash machine gun fire on the attackers, inflicting thousands of casualties. The attackers would send wave after wave.
Broken bots scattered all around.
The opposing trench was
Do you really want to see that?
There would be months of fighting and the deaths of thousands in order to gain a few meters or kilometers of land. Living in the trenches was hard.
And that's what it always turns to.
Mud that could swallow you whole, pools of poisonous water, rats,
and the diseases.
The smell. It's insane that millions of soldiers put up with these conditions, and commanders ordered them to do so for years.
For what? What was not the reason for all this? With all the dead. Let's check out part 2.
With both sides stuck in a hard stalemate, they knew this war wasn't going to be about taking territory, but about simply wearing each other down. The Allies had plenty of men to expend from its overseas dominions, and the British also started a naval blockade, so Germany couldn't import stuff, like food. Neither side really wanted a long, grueling war, though, so they
but it turned out to be so.
Deadlock on the Western Front. Idea number 1, new frontiers. When the war first broke out, Australia was quick to take German New Guinea. The
Sorry,
Allies
just
also jumped
spreads.
on Germany's colonies in Africa, and particularly in German East
It
Africa,
just draws
locals were enlisted as soldiers
people
and
from
carriers by
all
both sides,
around the
leading to
globe.
a tragic loss of life for the native Africans. Some new combatants entered the war as well. The Allies' new friends were Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take away German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense relations, and then the Allies promising to give them some of Austria-Hungary's stuff, they switched sides. Italy opened up a front in the mountains here, but like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate for most of the war. The Central Powers' new friend was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans... The Ottoman were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians who did want to join went off on their own and fired some shells at Russia, and then came back and said, whoops, looks like we're at war now. The Ottoman entry into the war was of particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil.
And now who wants all of that oil?
To attack Russia in
Reminds you of something?
But they weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed miles of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British, but that failed too. Then the Allies tried to take the Dardanelles
So it just spreads.
in a long and hard trench warfare campaign, but
And then at this point, you'll be asking, why are we even doing this?
On the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory.
That's how it spreads. To a point, you all even forgot what even started it in the first place.
Then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. But that plan failed, partly because the spies got bored, brewed their own alcohol, and got drunk, which is a bad thing to do in Afghanistan. All these new frontiers hadn't done much to change the war. Aware that the Allies had more men and supplies than them, the Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically,
And
don't be
everyone
jerks. The Germans
just
held a
toys
meeting
and
decided to
did whatever out of
Zeppelin air raids
desperation.
commenced over British cities. They also started
Does that remind you of something?
chlorine gas, and they used submarines to sink civilian ships.
And right now, we're hearing that. What was the last report we had from the world power? The more boring rules of engagement. They're all in it to win, no matter what. What does that sound like? You know, it might look all cool and fun at this start, but you don't know what precedent you are setting for the future. The carnage that all this is just little by little. It started just go crazy all at once. No, it's bit by bit. And the people are asking, why wasn't anyone there to stop it? Is there anybody there right now in the US like that is really speaking against all this? Are there? Anybody protesting against all this at this point? No. Everybody's just watching and looking because it's not interrupting their way of life. Well, not yet. But this has shown that at some point it will get to you. At some point. If you don't stand up and try your best to put a halt to things now that it is still within, not getting crazy, insanely out of control, something can be done. There'll be a point to just be broken bodies, revenge, hatred, and deaths. And before you have even blinked, boom, 100,000 is gone. 60,000 is dead in a single day. Before you know it. I hope it doesn't get to that point. But at this point, we need to start saying no to this vehemently. If not, your normal cozy life will be interrupted, whether you like it or not. There will be a point to come to you. And at that point, it has gotten to your home. It might be too late. The time to say no and stand for peace is when it hasn't started interrupting your everyday life. But if you feel it's not your business, it's not happening where you are, then all I can say is, sorry. Sorry for what is to come.
One such civilian ship was the Lusitania, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying US opinion against the Germans. Not to be completely unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after.
That's what they got to. Everybody starts getting desperate and using all manner of
which let
things.
the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help. Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War.
There comes the need to want to expand.
Come true if they helped.
And everybody wants to use the chaos to expand their own sphere of influence. And that's the powder keg of disaster.
Some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians, many of whom escaped by sea. It's 1916.
2 years
and a lot
after.
is happening. As if they didn't have enough enemies already, Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes, and Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time,
and they joined another person.
Both sides had a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts, but they were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing them in a battle, so they kept them in port, except for one time when they had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something to draw the Germans' attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first
In a
day.
single day.
It was also here that
In a single day, upper house along the British way.
Sci-fi technology. The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive, and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief
And everybody will just want to hop in and increase their own flare of
finally
influence.
abdicated and the country reunited. With
Wow.
Allied help, they began a new offensive. In the Middle East, Russia
how
was
much
pushing
did all
the
this
Ottoman
cost?
territory from the north.
Imagine.
The British had also made a landing in
They are
Mesopotamia
not
to protect Persia's oil
spent
fields.
just to kill each
They
other.
also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad, but the army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way and eventually surrendered. A new offensive was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply lines. By the time 1917 rolled around,
3 years
everyone was
after.
exhausted. There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question
Still
now
anyone's
was who
war.
was going to break first. And the answer was Russia. Tired of not eating,
I wonder at this point whether they'll remember what started it in the first place.
there was an uprising in Petrograd complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full-scale revolution and a new government overthrew the Tsar. Then a few months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew the new government. And they pulled
Ha!
Russia out of the war. This was great news for Germany, who now only had to focus on the Western Front. But there was still one problem. The pesky United States of America was looking increasingly like it was going to join the war. America had been selling supplies to the Allies throughout the war and was getting super rich off the back of it, meaning it was in fantastic shape and was dangerous to the Germans. So Germany sent a telegram to Mexico saying, "Wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys attacked America?" But the British intercepted the message, showed it to the Americans, and that was the final straw. American troops began shipping out to Europe. This was terrible news for Germany, and they knew their only hope now was to force France and the UK to surrender before the fresh American troops arrived. It was now or never, so they started one final attack. They converged their troops and hit hard at the Somme and pushed the Allies back. They hit a second time further north, then again and again. With each hit, the Germans were spending more and more resources, while the Allies were getting better and better at repelling their attacks. By the fifth punch, the Allies held the line and even pushed back. With American troops now arriving in larger numbers, the Allies launched a counterattack, and that was it. The Central Powers were being pushed back on all fronts. Bulgaria collapsed first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, then Austria-Hungary, and finally on November 11th, 1918 at 11 o'clock, Germany surrendered. At the peace treaty,
After
Germany
all
was
that,
forced to reduce
with how many dead?
accept war guilt and pay the bill for the war. After indescribable suffering and millions
70 million dead, 20 million wounded. And for what? For those saying, yay, right now. You don't know how crazy chain of events can go with just the little incidents that happen in the present. It's best you choose peace and dialogue. If not, well, all I can say is again, sorry to the future. Truly. 70 million dead. Have you seen 100 people just scattered on the ground, broken, dead? Let's not even go there. Have you gone to a mortuary? I think the average mortuary has about maybe 100, 500 to like 1,000 bodies there. Have you entered there and just seen dead bodies just lying there on the ground and whatnot? I think if you have not, you need to go. I think why people still long and yearn for war, they don't really know what it really means. People can't really conceptualize the amount of loss. Just go and see, if you can just see at least 100 people dead just on the floor and multiply that number. How many multiples of that 100 do you need to multiply to get, let's just say 10 million? So just imagine that figure of 100 and multiply it so that your mind can conceptualize 10 million people gone over what? What is broken, shattered here and there. And for what? Is it really worth it?
Instead, the world learnt its lesson and never had such an awful war again.
Did they? The world learnt its lesson.
About 20 years.
Yeah, World War II. So that's it. 70 million dead, 20 million wounded. And for what? And I ask again, was it really worth it? At this point, I'm sure those that were fighting don't even know why it even started in the first place. At that point, it's just go and take out the other side, go and take out the other side. And for what? For what? 1940. The time of great innovations in technology, culture, and fashion. And I ask again, does that remind you of something of the present? If it doesn't, then maybe you're just detached from reality. Time of increase in technology, and everybody starts eyeing each other's stuff. The current world power gets jealous of this economic rising power and then starts trying to exert dominance out of greed. Starts checking your eye here and there, and it turns into a powder keg of disaster. If you think this is about anyone getting nuclear capabilities, then you're highly deceived. Highly. It's all about greed and excessive control. The soft power is almost gone. Now it's all desperation to spread hard power. If you don't speak up against this, we are heading towards another devastation, the likes of which we have not seen before. Those over there, if you are not speaking against this, it's better do so now before in the future people be asking, oh, when this was steadily building up, why didn't you do anything about it? I know that there was this discussion documentary I was watching, and somebody was asking at that point where all this was brewing and whatnot was about happening, why didn't anyone do any tangible stuff to stop it before it gets crazy? If I had known comes at last. The things you stand up for today, who knows, it might advert crazy devastation tomorrow. Speak up. Speak up before it's too late. Before it's too late. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. There's no winners in war. None. Go and check the death toll of this. And even that of World War II was 5 times worse than this, with atrocities the likes of which humanity has never seen before. And if we disregard international law that was birthed out of the carnage of this, then we are in for something worse. We are in for something worse. Because you see, wartime creates strong men, but time of peace brings about weak men. Weak men do some crazy things, and starts off another chain of war, and the cycle just continues. Right now, the world is governed mostly by weak men that think they can just bully whoever, destroy whatever they don't like. But it's that attitude that gave birth to the carnage we saw 80 years and 114 years ago. It is your duty to ensure it doesn't happen again. And let's hope it doesn't. But keeping quiet is part of the problem. Truly. Your voice matters. You might not know it, but it does. Let's hope this doesn't get worse than it is. Because if it does, then no matter where you are across the globe, it's going to affect you. It will affect you. Let's hope it doesn't get worse than this. And let's hope common sense prevail. But in all this, there's one thing I'm grateful for. And you know what it is? I'm grateful that humans don't live for too long. Highest 100 years or thereabouts, and we're gone. Because what if we lived longer? What amount of carnage would we have been doing to each other? Just imagine with this limited time, look at what we do to each other. Look at what we do. Now imagine if we lived like, 500 years or 1,000 years. Imagine the kind of sins unspeakable we would have been doing to each other. So I'm really grateful because at this point, humans don't deserve to live for too long. We really need to go 6 feet under. Because really, I ask again, what do you stand to gain from all this? Is it really worth it? Killing each other? Spending billions? Just to take out your so-called ideological foe to the other end of the earth? Is it really worth it? Really? In 50 years from now, will you be even alive to see the outcome of what you started? Would you? I hope common sense prevails. If you watch to the end of this video, say, I hope common sense prevails. Thanks for watching. And listening to me just ramble about stuff. I watch anime, but still, it's important that we need to just say things as it is, and let's hope common sense prevails. If not, well, too bad. And sorry to the future. See you guys in the next one.